He looked me dead in my eyes and said, "You're embarrassing, Renata. I can't take you like this." Then he zipped up his tuxedo jacket, grabbed his phone, and told me he was taking someone else to the biggest night of his career. I stood there in my own bedroom, in the house I helped build, and felt smaller than I'd ever felt in my life. But what happened 3 hours later when I walked into that ballroom myself is a moment nobody in that room will ever forget. Let me take you back to where it all started. My name is Renata, and for 11 years I thought I knew exactly who I was married to. Desmond and I met young, back when he was still hustling for his first real job and I was finishing up my degree at night while working 2 jobs during the day. We built everything together. Every promotion he got, I was the one typing his reports until 3 in the morning. Every deal he closed, I was the one who calmed him down the night before, who told him he was smart enough, good enough, ready enough. I believed in him before anybody else did. And for a long time, he made me feel like that mattered. But somewhere along the way, things shifted. It's a strange thing, watching a person change right in front of you and not being able to point to the exact day it happened. It wasn't one big explosion. It was small things, a comment here, a sigh there. The way he'd correct me in front of his colleagues, like I was a child who needed guidance instead of the woman who'd been by his side since before he had 2 dimes to rub together. By the time we got to this last year, Desmond had climbed high, really high. He was up for a major promotion at his firm, the kind that came with a corner office and a seat on the board. And with that climb came a whole new circle of people. People with old money and new attitudes. People who looked at me sometimes like I was a guest in my own life. I told myself I was imagining it. I told myself Desmond still saw me the way he used to. I was wrong. It started with little digs about my clothes. Maybe something more classic this time, he'd say, when I picked out an outfit for one of his work dinners. Then it became comments about how I talked, how loud my laugh was, how extra I could be around his coworkers. I started shrinking myself. I started rehearsing how to sit, how to speak, how to laugh quieter just to avoid that look on his face. If you've ever loved someone and felt yourself disappearing bit by bit just to keep the peace, you already know exactly what I'm talking about. Then there was Simone. She showed up in his life about 8 months ago, brought in as a consultant for one of his firm's biggest accounts. Desmond talked about her a lot at first, the way you'd talk about any impressive new colleague. She's sharp. She's got great instincts. She really knows how to work a room. I didn't think much of it in the beginning. I trusted my husband. I trusted 11 years of marriage, but trust doesn't stop your gut from noticing things your heart doesn't want to admit. He started working later. His phone started living face down on every surface. He'd step out of the room to take calls he never used to step out for. And when I asked him about it, he'd get this tight, defensive look on his face, like I was the one doing something wrong just by asking a simple question. I remember the night I finally saw her name pop up on his phone screen at 11 at night, a little heart emoji next to it, and something in me went cold and quiet. Not angry yet, just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes right before you start paying very, very close attention. I didn't confront him right away. I know some of you are yelling at your screen right now, telling me I should have said something immediately. But when you've built a life with someone, when your whole identity has been wrapped around being his partner, you don't jump straight to confrontation. You watch, you gather. You try to convince yourself you're wrong, even when every part of you knows you're not. And then the gala came up. This wasn't just any event. This was the annual gala hosted by his firm, the kind of night where promotions get decided in hallway conversations, where the right handshake can change your entire career trajectory. Desmond had been talking about this night for months. He needed to make an impression. He needed everything to be perfect. And for years, that had meant me standing next to him, dressed sharp, smiling, saying the right things to the right people. I had done that job well. I had done it so well that some of his partners used to tell him he was lucky to have a wife like me. So naturally, I started planning what I'd wear. I found this deep emerald gown, fitted, elegant, bold in a way that felt like me. I tried it on for him one evening, excited, spinning around in our bedroom like I used to when we were young and broke and still madly in love. And that's when he said it. He looked at me up and down and his face didn't light up. It twisted. "That's a lot, Renata," he said. "Don't you have something more, toned down, something less flashy? You know how these people are." I stood there in that gown feeling the air leave my chest. "These people," I repeated. "You mean your coworkers?" "The same people who used to compliment me at every single one of these events." He waved his hand like he was swatting away a fly. "It's just a lot this year. There's more writing on this one. I need everything to look a certain way." I should have known right then that everything didn't include me anymore. The days leading up to the gala got tense. He was short with me, distracted, always on his phone. I tried on 3 more outfits, each time asking him what he thought, and each time getting a version of the same unimpressed, irritated response. Something felt off in a way I couldn't quite name yet, but my body knew before my mind caught up. I felt it in my shoulders, in the way I couldn't sleep, in the tight knot sitting in my stomach every single night. The night before the gala, I found the messages. I wasn't even looking for them. His phone buzzed while he was in the shower, and it was sitting right there on the nightstand, lit up with a message from Simone. Can't wait for tomorrow. It'll be good for both of us to walk in together. Everyone will finally see what we've got. I stared at that message for what felt like an hour, even though it was probably 10 seconds. My hands were shaking, but my mind was strangely calm. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, not yet. I set the phone back down exactly where it had been, and I waited for him to come out of that bathroom. Desmond, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, who's going with you tomorrow night? He froze for half a second, just long enough for me to see the truth flicker across his face before he tried to cover it. What are you talking about? You're coming with me, obviously. Am I? I asked. Because it doesn't sound like that's what you and Simone have planned. The room went dead silent. He sat down slowly on the edge of the bed, and for a moment I actually thought he was going to apologize, going to tell me it was a misunderstanding, going to fight for what we'd built. Instead, he sighed like I was the inconvenience in this situation. Renata, look. This night is important. I need to be sharp, I need to be seen a certain way, and honestly, he paused like he was choosing his words carefully, like there was a gentle way to say something this cruel. You've been a little embarrassing lately. The way you talk in front of my colleagues, the way you dress, it doesn't fit where I'm trying to go. Simone understands that world. She fits in it. I think it's better if she comes with me this time. I want you to imagine hearing that from the person who promised to stand beside you for the rest of your life. Not a stranger, not some random cruel comment from someone who didn't know me. This was my husband, the man who used to tell me I was the best thing that ever happened to him, now telling me I was an embarrassment standing in the way of his image. I didn't scream at him. I didn't throw anything, though every part of my body wanted to. I just looked at him, really looked at him, like I was seeing him clearly for the first time in a long time. Then I walked out of that bedroom and closed the door softly behind me because something in me had already started to shift. I spent that night on the couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying 11 years in my head. I thought about every dinner I'd cooked after a 12-hour shift, every late night I spent editing his presentations, every time I told him he could do it when nobody else believed in him. I thought about how much of myself I had poured into building his dreams, and how easily he had just decided I didn't fit into them anymore. Somewhere around 2 in the morning, I called my best friend, Yolanda. She picked up on the second ring, voice thick with sleep, and the second she heard me try to talk, she knew something was wrong. I told her everything, the messages, the comments, the word embarrassing sitting in my chest like a stone. She was quiet for a moment, and then she said something I'll never forget. Renata, do you understand who you are? Do you understand what you've built with your own two hands, separate from that man? That question hit me harder than anything Desmond had said all night, because for the first time in a long time, I actually stopped to think about it. See, here's something I hadn't told you yet, something Desmond had conveniently forgotten in his moment of cruelty. Over the last 2 years, while he was busy climbing his ladder, I had been quietly building my own. I'd started consulting on the side, using skills from my old career, and it had grown into something real. Just a few months earlier, I had closed a partnership deal with a company that, as it turned out, was one of the biggest clients tied to the very firm hosting that gala. Desmond didn't even know the full details because he'd stopped asking about my work the same way he used to. He was so wrapped up in his own image that he never noticed I was building something powerful right next to him. That night, lying awake, something in me settled. The hurt didn't disappear, but it stopped controlling me. I stopped asking myself what was wrong with me and started asking a better question. What was I going to do about this? The next morning, I called Yolanda back and told her my plan. She let out a laugh that came from somewhere deep and satisfied. Oh, he has no idea what's coming, she said. I spent that day doing something I hadn't done in a long time. I did things for myself, not to prove a point, not for revenge, but because I deserved it. I went and got that emerald gown altered exactly the way I wanted it, no compromises this time. I got my hair done. I sat in that chair and let myself feel beautiful, really beautiful for the first time in months. I called a longtime mentor of mine, a sharp, no-nonsense businessman named Mr. Whitfield, who had guided me through my consulting career, and I told him I might need a +1 for a certain event that evening. He didn't even blink. Say less, he said. I was already planning on being there. As the sun started going down, I stood in front of my mirror in that emerald gown, and for the first time in a long time, I recognized the woman staring back at me. Not Desmond's wife trying to shrink herself down to fit somebody else's comfort. Just me, confident. Whole enough. Meanwhile, across town, Desmond was walking into that gala with Simon on his arm, probably feeling like he'd made the smartest decision of his life. He had no idea what was waiting for him. I arrived a little later, intentionally. Mister. Whitfield picked me up himself, and when we pulled up to that venue, I felt a calm settle over me that surprised even myself. No nerves, no second guessing, just quiet certainty. Walking into that ballroom in that emerald gown on the arm of one of the most respected businessmen in the city, I watched the entire room shift. Conversations paused, heads turned, and then I found Desmond's face across the room and I watched the color drain right out of it. He had told me I was embarrassing. He had told me I didn't fit into that world. But that world knew exactly who I was because it turned out the partnership deal I had closed months earlier wasn't just some small side project. It was tied directly to the firm's newest and biggest account, the exact account Desmond had been working himself to the bone trying to secure. And the man on my arm, my mentor, was the decision maker behind that very deal. Word had clearly traveled fast, because within minutes people were approaching me, congratulating me, telling me how excited they were about the partnership. Desmond stood frozen near the bar, Simone gripping his arm like she suddenly understood she was standing in the wrong spotlight. He made his way over eventually, that same tight, controlled expression on his face, the one he used to wear when he was trying to manage a situation he didn't fully understand. "Renata," he said carefully, glancing around at all the eyes now on us, "what is this? What are you doing here?" I looked at him, calm, steady, no shaking in my voice this time. "I was invited," I said simply. "Turns out I fit into this world a little better than you thought." He tried to pull me aside privately, probably hoping to control the damage before it spread further, but I didn't move. I wasn't hiding anymore. Not for him, not for anybody. "You told me I was embarrassing," I said, loud enough for the people closest to us to hear, though my tone never rose. "You told me I didn't belong here, but it seems like the people who actually run this room feel differently." Simone, to her credit, had the decency to look uncomfortable, shifting her weight and avoiding eye contact, clearly realizing she had walked into something bigger than she understood. Desmond, on the other hand, looked like a man watching his entire carefully built image crumble in real time, right there under the chandeliers he'd been so desperate to stand beneath. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to cause a dramatic scene. The truth did all the work for me. Word spread through that room fast, and by the end of the night, it wasn't Desmond who walked away with a stronger reputation. It was me. His own colleagues, the same people he'd been terrified of embarrassing him in front of, were the ones shaking my hand, asking for my card, telling me they looked forward to working together. I left that gala early, not because I was running from anything, but because I had nothing left to prove. Mr. Whitfield walked me out, told me how proud he was of the woman I had become, and for the first time in a long time, I felt something settle deep in my chest. Peace. The weeks that followed were not easy, I won't pretend they were. Desmond tried to backtrack, tried to convince me it was a moment of weakness, tried to explain away months of quiet betrayal with a few sorry excuses. But some things, once said, can't be unsaid. He called me embarrassing in the same breath he chose someone else over me, and no apology could undo the truth of what that revealed about how he truly saw me. We separated not long after. It wasn't loud or messy, just quiet and final, the way some endings are when there's simply nothing left to fight for. Desmond's career, ironically, took a hit after that partnership deal ended up shifting hands, landing squarely in the direction of my growing consulting business instead. Karma has a strange sense of timing sometimes. As for me, my business grew faster than I ever expected. That one gala, that one night I almost let a man's cruel words convince me to shrink myself into nothing, turned into the beginning of the most powerful chapter of my life. I learned something that night that I carry with me every single day now. My worth was never something Desmond had the power to define. It never depended on his approval, his comfort, or his idea of what fit into his image. If there's one thing I want you to take from my story, it's this. The moment someone tries to make you feel small for simply being yourself, that is not the moment to shrink. That is the moment to stand taller, dress how you want, speak how you want, and walk into every room like you already know you belong there, because you probably built more than they'll ever give you credit for. If this story moved you, if any part of it reminded you of your own strength, I want you to drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from, and let me know, have you ever had a moment like this, where someone underestimated you right before you shocked them completely? I read every single comment, and I love hearing your stories just as much as I love sharing mine. And if you want more real stories like this one, stories about strength, betrayal, and women finding their way back to themselves, make sure you subscribe and turn on that notification bell, because trust me, this is not the last story I have to tell. There's more coming, and you do not want to miss it. Take care of yourselves, keep your standards high, and I'll see you in the next one.